that we're pulling for Iraq to fail. I hope none of you are pulling for it to fail. I hope you want them to hold themselves together and be a successful democracy. But if you heard General Petraeus come back and testify last week, it was a strong case for the very policy that he opposed, because he's an immensely impressive man and a very great general. But the first time he came, he said, give me more troops, I'll take down the violence, I'll buy them space to make their hard decisions. This time his testimony was, I got the troops, I took down the violence, I bought them the space, those decisions weren't made, there is no end in sight. Those decisions, which are hard, how to split the oil money, how to share the political power, have not been made in no small measure because they think we're there for the long run, whether they're made or not. And Hilary believes if we do what Senator McCain suggests and tell them there we will stay indefinitely, it is an unsustainable policy. We have been there longer than we were in World War II. 4,000 lives have been lost. 70,000 people have been wounded. We spend $120 billion a year there. We have exhausted the Army, the Marine Corps, the National Guard, the Reserve. For 1 year, we have been training Navy reservists in Army infantry tactics and deploying them to Iraq because we have no reserve ground forces and the level of commitment cannot be sustained. Furthermore, it is undermining the effort to save the moderate Muslim democracy in Afghanistan and to fight the real adversary on terror, the Al-Qaeda, the people who did 9/11. They have killed thousands of people since. They want to start another war in the Middle East. They want to keep the next president from doing the single most important thing that would lift the specter of terror from your future, which is to get a just and lasting peace that ensures the security of Israel and gives the Palestinian people a homeland. And she will work hard on that. But it all begins with having an orderly withdrawal from Iraq, one that takes care of the 100,000, one that takes care of the Iraqis that have risked their lives for us. Now, I want to make full disclosure because some of you may disagree with this, and I'm big on this, telling everybody the whole deal. Hilary believes we should leave a small group of special forces in the north to counter the Al-Qaeda there, because they do want to wreck it. In the north where the Kurds are, there's no ongoing fighting, but we need to have a backstop there to deal with the Al-Qaeda. As soon as we make it clear that we have to disengage, you watch. There will be an intense effort to make those decisions, to pull that country together. The rest of the world will come in. The UN will come in, and we'll have a legitimate chance to save that country. If we keep doing what we're doing, we'll get more of the same. She wants to bring the troops home. Also, she knows it's necessary because we've got to rebuild the American military. In every way, the readiness is down. And if you've been reading, last week there was a story saying that mental health problems are exploding among the young men and women in the military, required to do the second, the third, the fourth tour. Yesterday in North Carolina, I met a young woman and her two beautiful little children. Her husband was on his fourth tour. And I hear these stories all the time of the burdens being imposed. This is an important thing to do. We have got to end this war. We need to do it in the right way. And finally, let me say this. Hilary says that we can save most, but not all, of the $120 billion a year we're spending in Iraq. But we have to remember, we have 70,000 wounded veterans and hundreds of thousands coming home. And she asked me to say at every stop that if she becomes the president, she will never allow this country to make the shameful mistake we made after Vietnam and confuse an unpopular war with our obligation to the men and women who served in it. And you should care about this. You know, I think very few young voters will cast a vote on this issue, what's happening with the veterans, unless you have a loved one or a family member who's been in the military in this period. But if we mess this up, you will pay a terrible psychic price. I know there are 200,000 homeless veterans in this country today. Almost all of them are Vietnam veterans who have their generation's version of what you call post-traumatic stress disorder. And if they had had the GI Bill for the 21st century, which Hilary proposes, if they had come home to intensive counseling and support, to mental health care if they needed, to living in a veterans home if they couldn't live entirely independently on their own, to access not just to education loans, but to small business loans, to housing help, to somebody would go out there and pick them up and get them started again if they fell off their rent payments. You wouldn't have 200,000 people who serve this country sleeping under bridges in cardboard boxes. You would never let it happen to your generation. And it's very important. And you don't have to take my word for any of this. It is very interesting that the first serious woman candidate for president is the one who has been endorsed by 2 former chairmen of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, 35 retired generals and admirals, and a raft of veterans groups all over America, because they know from her service on the Senate Armed Services Committee that she will take care of the men and women in uniform, take care of the veterans, that she can be trusted to keep her word, to bring the troops home, but to do it in the way that is best for them, best for you, and best for the long-term security interests of the United States. That's the first reason you should vote for her. She'd be the best commander-in-chief. She represented our country in over 80 other countries. She knows that America has to get back in the cooperation business, and she's the best to lead the way. Now let's talk about what most people are concerned about in America today, which is the economy's in the tank. And it's in there for 4 reasons. Most Americans, most of your families who have economic troubles experience these troubles as flat incomes and exploding costs. You agree with that? There are 4 reasons for the economic distress we face. The first is exploding energy prices, especially for oil. Most people feel it in gas prices and food prices. The second is the looming